Well, howdy there, folks. This is your host, ID Jester. Welcome back to the Advanced Squad Leader rule set in about 15 minutes. And yes, this series is not dead. Believe it or not, I am still around. First of all, I'd like to apologize for my absence for the last 6 or so months. It's been a while since we actually posted any videos on the Advanced Squad Leader system. And basically, I'm just going to kind of give you the overview. I think if you watched the last parts of my series that I had posted a few months ago, I was getting to the point where it just was becoming so big, so massive, that it kind of was getting overwhelming me. I was trying to spit out videos every couple days, and it was taking a lot of time, and it got to the point where I wasn't really completing very much of the rules, and I had done 25 episodes, 30 episodes, and it was basically just becoming to me a big burden, and it was taking a lot of time, like I mentioned, and I just got to the point where I was said to myself, is it really worth all the time and effort? Because, I mean, there is just so much left to do, and I thought, there's no way I'm going to do this, and there's absolutely, it's just too overwhelming, and the more you do, the bigger waste of time it felt, and, it just was like so big and so monumental. I got to the point where it was a decision that I had to make whether or not I was even going to continue it or not, and so I kind of just burned out on it. It just got so overwhelming, and just really had no desire to try and complete a project that was literally going to take 20 years of my life to do, and for no purposes, I'm not getting paid to do this. I'm getting no reward other than the satisfaction of knowing that maybe there's some people out there that possibly might enjoy these videos and might be able to use them to bring some joy to their life and be able to learn and accomplish playing some ASL scenarios. And for me at the time, it just thought all the time and effort and desire just kind of went out the window with how massive and how big this project could turn into. And so I just basically quit at that point. I had no desire to continue it, and just kind of put it on the back shelf and decided, yeah, it's really not worth my time and effort, because, I mean, it's just, how much can I really help? How much can I basically help those people out there that really would like to learn and want to know some information? And there's just so much. I mean, the rule book itself is like, 628 pages long, and if I was to do like an episode at one page of the rule book, it would be like 628 pages. So my 30 little episodes or 35 little episodes that I did, okay, maybe they did a little bit of good for that one little section that people will use in the rule book, and what about the other 600 or 500 pages or whatever? And I'm not, it's going to be too big an effort to try to create something that's going to be usable and doable for all those people out there, especially, if the episodes are 20 to 30 minutes long, even though it's a 15-minute rule. It would be hundreds of hours of their life to watch videos to try and learn the system and everything. And so, like I said, put it on the back burner, just decided it's just too big a task. They can read the rule book and we can try to figure this out themselves or whatever. And so, that's kind of was my attitude back about 6 months ago. And recently, I would say, in the last month or so, when you guys post messages on YouTube and watch the videos, and you post these messages, I get a report back and an email saying, oh, so-and-so left you a message, blah, blah, blah. And so I've been trying to get back and post, to people and let them know, hey, thanks for watching my video. I appreciate, your kind words and thanks for the thoughts and all that. And so I got on my YouTube channel and was checking out the videos, and I was really kind of amazed at all the people out there that left messages, that took the time to say, hey, thanks a lot, appreciate this, oh, well done, good job, just all the really good compliments and everything. So it got me thinking again that maybe I am doing something good out there. Maybe there's some people out there that are actually using these videos and actually watching them and enjoying them, and maybe the effort and the time that I did spend on this and the previous series as well, maybe they are doing some good out there. Maybe there are some people that are learning some things. It seems to me like there's people that are posting and saying, hey, you did a good job and thanks and appreciate it and keep up the good work and hope you can continue and hope you post more videos and everything. And so I got on a few of the different videos and was just looking at all the different replies out there, and I said to myself, well, maybe there is something that I am doing out there. Maybe there's just that little bit that I'm doing that is kind of inspiring some people, and maybe they are learning some stuff, and maybe all that time and trouble and effort that I did put in, maybe that's not wasted as much as I thought it was being wasted. And maybe you should think about picking this back up and just seeing if there's people that are still interested and still watching and still learning and still trying to spend their own time and effort trying to watch the videos and read the rules and go over the information and see what you're doing and watching and trying to learn. And so I decided I was going to go ahead and give this another shot. And I've had a lot of people, and I do appreciate, let me tell you this first, I do appreciate all of the thoughts and the comments and the suggestions and everything that people have posted. To be honest, without those thoughts and comments and suggestions that you guys have posted, there's absolutely no chance that I would have picked this back up to try to continue on, to try and bring more information out there, to do more videos, to do more training videos. I would not have done that. But after reading all these videos, replies, and comments, I thought, yeah, maybe there are people out there that are appreciative of the effort. There are people out there that are thinking that it was a job well done and it was a job that was worth doing. And so it kind of inspired me again. So for those of you out there who had left thoughts and comments, suggestions, I do want to really tell you, give you my hardest, warmest, sincere thanks that you took the time to do that, and you took the effort to leave the comment, and I do appreciate that, and I do read them, and I do see them, and it's because of people like that out there that I've decided I'm actually going to try to do some more with this if the interest and desire is out there. So that's kind of just an overview. I know I've wasted about 8-9 minutes already of actual time here, but I wanted to get that out and kind of explain where the situation and let everybody know where things were, where things stand. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of people that had posted some suggestions out there. Hey, don't get burned out on this. If you make this more of a pleasurable thing, more of an interest thing than trying to make it a full-time job. Don't try and push yourself, because what's going to end up happening is the way I felt back in October, where I'm doing all these videos, I'm spending all this time, and I'm getting absolutely nowhere in the book. I mean, it's just so much in there. I could probably just sit here and talk for hours upon hours upon hours and still not get anywhere in the book. But I'm going to look at the small picture, and that was some of the suggestions that people had mentioned out there. I think they could tell my frustrations. I'm sure I had mentioned some things throughout the video series that it was getting to be the point where it was too much and it was pretty overwhelming and everything. And so with those suggestions, I am going to take those suggestions to heart. One of the suggestions I had was maybe release one video every week, or try to limit the amount of time and effort that I actually spend on it, so I have other things that I would like to do and to try to accomplish. And so I am going to take all of these suggestions into heart. And again, I really appreciate everybody that had put that time and effort into saying that and to let me know what their thoughts were on this. So again, I apologize for the length of this kind of introductory part, and obviously this is going to make this video a little bit longer, but I think I needed to at least kind of let everybody know. I actually got on Board Game Geek a little bit ago and was actually reading the reviews there and watched, looking at the comments as well as my YouTube channel, and a lot of the people at the Board Game Geek were very appreciative and had suggestions and thoughts as well. And so just a combination of everybody out there, I would like to just let everybody know that I do appreciate the views, I do appreciate the comments, I do appreciate the suggestions, and hopefully if we can keep everything in a smooth and concise, and these aren't really the words I want to use. I want to use more of some bigger words, but I can't think of them right now. But keep things on a even keel and not make it a job, but make it more of an opportunity for both yourselves and myself. Like I mentioned, I'm not getting paid to do this. I'm doing this out of the kindness of my heart. I don't need to do it for me. It doesn't bring me anything other than I get to review the rules again and get to see something that maybe I missed or something that I'm not sure about. I get to look the rules over again and get to analyze them and kind of think about them. And then also, when I'm preparing for sessions, I think about the best way to talk about different things and to bring different situations up. So it makes me think more about the complexity and what the rule means and how it implies to the game and everything. So that, for me, that's good as well. But for me, I don't really need to understand the rules and watch them as in depth as maybe some of the newer players or the people that are coming back to it after some layoff and everything. So with that out of the way, let's get back into looking at Advanced Squad Leader, the 15-minute rule set. Even though it's been almost 15 minutes, I'm going to spend a few minutes going over some of the stuff that we had talked about. Now, I watched the last couple of videos, and I think I'm caught up on where I was. Like I said, we had a nice big long break here. And so hopefully between that and watching the videos and catching up where I'm at. So first thing is, I apologize if I talk about anything that has come in a couple of the episodes before, but I believe we were obviously concentrating on defensive first fire and then subsequent first fire. So just as a rehash here, I kept my vassal, I kept my modules, I kept all my sheets, so I didn't get to the point where I threw everything away and just trashed everything. I kept everything, thinking, well, maybe someday I would think about it. So yes, I still have everything. Defensive first fire, we're talking about what happens during your opponent's movement phase, and then of course what happens in your defensive fire phase. You're actually going to be using your units to defensive fire at their units that are moving around the map. And as subsequent first fire, you learned that once you have taken your first defensive fire opportunity, you will be marked, let's just get one of these. You will be marked with a first fire counter. So we'll just assume that these guys here decide to shoot at these German units that are moving across the map. They're going to be moved, or they're going to be marked with a defensive fire counter as a first fire. And then of course we learned last episode, which I really didn't get into the actual showing you all the rules we talked about, but basically when that unit moves again, you have another opportunity to subsequent first fire, and at that point your counter is going to be flipped over to final fire. And I had discreetly kind of mentioned in the video that that was your last opportunity to defensive first fire. But yes, once again, there is that wonderful little exception that ASL likes to throw out there. Nothing is ever over. Nothing ever is final until the game is over, it seems like. But there is actually another opportunity once you are marked with a final fire counter. So again, if you have no counter, the first time you use your units to fire, you're going to be marked with a first fire counter. And the second opportunity you fire it, you will be marked with, of course, a final fire counter. And once you're marked with final fire, it's not actually the final time you can fire, which we're going to look at. And this rule is, last time we looked at section 8.3 of the rulebook, and also 9.3 where we talked about sustained fire and permanent breakdown. This time we're looking at the subsection of 8.3, so you know it has something to do with subsequent first fire. And this is section 8.31, final protective fire. So FPF, which is an acronym for final protective fire, is a subsequent first fire option available only to defending infantry already marked with a final fire counter, which uses its small arms, machine guns, or IFE to attack adjacent, you notice adjacent is in big letters there, or same hex ground units in the attacker's movement phase. So this obviously isn't something you're going to be using in your defensive fire phase. This is used in the attacker's movement phase. If you choose, and you notice it does say here which wishes to use their small arms, so this is not a requirement to actually do this attack. But if you decide to, you must use all your machine guns and IFEs possessed by the unit up to its normal operation capabilities must be fired even if previously marked with a final fire counter, and are subject to all of the sustained fire penalties which we covered last episode. A unit using final protective fire may form a fire group with units not using final protective fire, but only those units using final protective fire are affected by its adverse effects. Final protective fire is a combination of area fire and PBF. If you remember what PBF stands for, it stands for point blank fire. Or triple blank fire if you actually have units enter into your hex. Immediately after resolving your final fire or final protective fire attack versus the moving units, the firer's original die roll, which is a mod applied only by leadership, is used as a normal morale check against the firing units using the final protective fire, including any directed by a leader. So underlined sections are basically just, hey, read this because it might be important sometime. Yellow sections are important, and green sections obviously are, hey, this is critical, you need to know this. The target of a final protective fire attack is attacked normally even if it breaks or pins the firer. Provided it doesn't break, there are no limits, none whatsoever, to the number of final protective fire attacks the unit may make, other than the number of moving units and the movement factors that they expend moving adjacent to or into the firer's hex. Any machine gun or IFE possessed by a unit using final protective fire is marked with a final fire counter regardless of its rate of fire, even if it had not fired previously in the movement phase. Units broken by final protective fire in a location containing enemy units are eligible to rout out in the ensuing rout phase. So what does all of this mean in English? That's what I'm here for, hopefully, so you guys can understand what all those rules represent. So again, I hate to go over stuff that we had just talked about. But when a unit moves, the first time you use your defensive fire, you're going to be marked with a first fire counter. The second time they move, you're going to be marked with a final protective fire. And even though it says final fire, it is not the last time you can attack. The last time you can actually attack is when they move. If they move adjacent to you, this is when you can use final protective fire and the rules that are associated with 8.31. So even if you're marked with the final fire counter, it's their movement phase, your opponent's movement phase, you can do final protective fire. And what happens is it's basically just like we had talked about subsequent first fire attack, which is going to be area fire, but because they are adjacent to you, that means you get to use point blank fire. So basically your attack's going to be halved because of firepower, because of area firepower, and then it's going to be doubled because it is point blank fire. So you're going to half and then double. So you can see here, if we were in L6 here, we would have this unit who has 2 firepower, and he would have an attack of 2 firepower. Halved would be 1, doubled back up to 2. So we would use the 2 column on the firepower table here as an attack against that opponent. Now, the penalty for this is you also take a morale check on yourself for your attack. The only modifier that comes into play for this morale check is your leader modifier. So if we see here we have an 8-1 leader, we would get a -1 to our die roll for our morale check, but we wouldn't get the benefit of this building. So you see L6 is a looks like a stone building there. We're not going to get any of the bonuses for the stone building. The only benefit we get is the leader modifier. So in this case, we'll assume that this unit here, we'll assume the unit starts here. He moves here. This unit in, oops, get off. There, no, thank you. Hello, go away. All right, back to what I was doing now. All right, so the German movement phase. German player decides to activate this unit. He moves into this hex. At that point, the Russian player decides to defensive first fire at the unit. He does his attack, and we will assume it just nothing happens, so he's marked with the final fire counter. The German player then moves into this hex right here. Again, the Russian player decides to subsequent first fire. And remember, one of the biggest and most important rules with a subsequent first fire is that the unit you're firing at cannot be greater than any other known enemy unit. So you can see that this unit is 2 hexes away. This unit is 2 hexes away. So it's not farther away than any known enemy unit. So you can use your subsequent first fire attack, which we will assume he does as well. And we'll assume once again that nothing happens from the attack. At that point, the German player decides to move into this hex right here. And even though this unit is marked with, I'm sorry, for some reason, there we go. Should have been marked with the final fire when he did his second attack. So when the German player moves into this hex right there, the Russian player can then decide whether or not he wants to do his final protective fire attack against him. And in this case, we're going to assume he decides to do it, so we can give you an example of what might happen. So of course we're going to roll 2 dice, and we rolled a 6 and a 5. This is a great example. So if we look on the 2 column here, you can see that 11 is absolutely nothing. Actually, it's going to be 10 because of the leader. -1 to the dice roll, so you can see there's no effect to the enemy whatsoever. But he also performs a morale check on himself with the same dice roll. So he rolled an 11, and remember the only modifier that comes into play when you're talking about final protective fire is going to be the leadership modifier, in this case a -1. So a -1 is going to be from 11 is going to be 10, and you notice that this unit here, the 237, did not make his morale check, so this unit is actually going to be broken, as well as the leader here. So basically what this represents is the units are becoming under attack. They're basically shooting to try and keep them away, and it's basically checking to see how strong-willed they are, how willing they are to have units come up right adjacent to them. And at this point, these guys are all cowering now and deciding whether to run away, get out of there. The Germans are coming. We didn't do any damage to them, and so they have become broken because of the dice roll. You can see that in the same situation, we will assume. Oops. Here we go. Move this guy up top. Let's unbreak him. There we go. The same situation happens. He moves up front. He gets a first fire counter. He decides to move there. The Russian player decides to go ahead and attack him again. Gets a final fire counter. We'll assume nothing happens. This unit moves here. Now this case, let's say he rolls a 2-3. I don't think the dice will actually help me here, but we'll roll them anyways just to see what happens. Okay, 3-3. That's just as good. 3-3. So we look at our chart here. Again, for firepower, we're going to look at our firepower here. 2 halved because it's area attack, so 2 halved is 1. It's a point blank because they're adjacent, so it's going to be doubled. 1 doubled is 2. So 2 minus 1 because of the leader. It's actually going to be another -1 because of non-assault move, and another -1 because of moving in the open. So it's actually going to be a 2 minus 3 attack. So he rolls a 6, and he gets to subtract 3 from that. So he ended up with a 3 result. A 3 result obviously is going to cause the German player to do a 1 morale check on the unit that was under attack here. And so let's just roll that at this point. He rolls a 7 plus 1 is 8, so he becomes pinned. And at that point, the 3-3 attack that had happened, we compare that to his morale. So he gets to subtract, because of the final protective fire, it goes back to his original dice roll of 3-3. -1 for the leader, so he rolled a 6, -1 is a 5. 5 is less than either one of their morales, so they are actually fine and dandy. So you can see big difference here in final protective fire. You can end up hurting yourself severely if you fail your morale check and you roll really high on that dice roll, or you could actually end up doing rather well because you're getting double your firepower because of the point blank adjacent. You're going to double your firepower, and even though it's half because of area firepower, so you're going to get a lot of good attacks that could end up doing some damage to enemies that are moving up adjacent to you. So you can see that just these two examples here, we had one situation where L6 was totally destroyed and broken and are going to be in a serious situation. And then the second try, we did the same example, and they ended up pinning the unit that came up adjacent to them, and nothing bad happened to the Russian player at all. So big difference in what can happen. So it's a kind of a risky deciding what to do move. Can end up, like I said, being very helpful for you, or it can end up being very hurtful for you. Sometimes you just strategy wise, which I like to give you guys some strategy moves, sometimes it's better to take the final protective fire hoping you become broken, so that way you can route away from the enemy and get away from him, because a lot of times what it'll do is your opponent will move up adjacent to you and then hope to come in and close combat your guys, and if he's got a really good situation. So the way to prevent that from happening is doing a final protective fire attack, breaking your units, and before he can come in and close combat, you can route away from him so he can't get in there and melee your units if he's got a substantial advantage on you with melee. So in this situation, he might be moving up just to try to cause a melee situation from you. The other thing is, if you end up missing your final fire attack, don't forget, because he's moving in the movement phase, he'll still get to attack in the advanced fire phase. So he might be moving up adjacent to you so he can get a better attack as well. So things to think about when you're deciding whether or not you're going to use the all-important final protective fire attack 8.31. But hopefully that explains the situation. We can have quite a bit of examples of what's going on with the final protective fire and the subsequent first fire, but I think what I'm going to do is complete this section here, and then we're going to have a full-blown German movement phase. But before we do that, we've got one more episode. We're going to talk about what are we going to talk about? Yes, that's what I was going to talk about. Residual firepower. Couldn't think of the word there for a second. Had a little brain stopped working for a second. So, residual firepower. It'll be the next section. We'll get to talk about what that's good for, and it didn't look like I've mentioned it the last couple episodes, but it doesn't look like I covered that section yet. So I think we'll cover that section, talk about what it does, what its abilities are, and then we'll have a full-blown, we'll move all the Germans back, we'll move all the Russians to where they need to go, and then we'll, after we complete the residual firepower section, we'll be able to focus in on all the rules for defensive fire. We'll actually play out a complete German movement phase with dice rolls and everything to kind of give you an example of what can happen during the defensive fire phase, and also talk strategy-wise about some of the things you might want to do as the attacker, or some of the things to watch out for as the defender. So we'll get to that soon, and hopefully it's not going to be another 6 months. I can guarantee you that. I'm going to try to complete these episodes a little bit quicker than that. So again, I apologize for the long delay here, but hopefully I explained the situation, and we can move on from there and continue on with the Advanced Squadron Leader in about 15 minutes. So thanks so much for watching. Be sure to leave any thoughts, comments, and suggestions you have out there for me, because like I mentioned, I do read them, and they do certainly sway my views on whether or not to continue and to keep progressing through this and making the effort, desire, and time to try to help you out there. So I guess we'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks so much for being patient.